For weeks now, negotiations between the US Congress and the White House have been deadlocked regarding the massive $3.5 billion spending plan put forward by President Biden. The plan includes funding for so many programs, and one of such programs is a massive plan to build 500,000 EV chargers across the nation. President Biden and the Democrats have long advocated for a migration from fossil fuels to green energy, so the proposal was not surprising.
We're going to make it easier for American consumers to switch to electric vehicles as well, not only by building 500,000 charging stations, but by offering rebates.
However, what has been shocking for even the most ardent advocate of green economics has been the sheer scale of the plan. In this video, we will explain the rationale behind President Biden's plans and why it is receiving so much pushback from political opposition and some economists. Several weeks ago, President Joe Biden put forward his Build Back Better plan to Congress with a price tag of about $3.5 billion. One of the main components of the plan is the infrastructure bill that will fund the development plan of green infrastructure across the length and breadth of the United States. As part of the infrastructure bill, the government plans to begin the rollout of electric charging stations for electric vehicles, or EVs as they are commonly called. Under the proposal, Joe Biden's administration plans to begin a massive rollout of these stations, which will cost at least $15 billion annually, with a long-term goal to reach 500,000 electric charging stations by 2030. This move is one that would have a transformative effect on the US economy. Already, the country currently has 102,000 public charging outlets in 42,000 charging stations, according to reports published by the Department of Energy. Also, about one-third of these stations are domiciled in California, while Michigan has about 1.5% of the nation's charging stations, with 1,542 charging outlets. From this information, it is clear that there is a great disparity with the spread of charging stations across the country, with some regions having very few stations for electric cars. However, as lofty as President Biden's goals may be, experts believe that the plan will require coordination across the retail and auto industry for it to work. Many argue that $15 billion expenditure estimate is insufficient. According to analysts, the plan will require between $35 to $45 billion or even more for the 2030 target to be reached. Many observers also believe that only a long-term approach that takes consumer needs into account will work. By adopting a long-term approach, demand will provide government and businesses with more time to expand current infrastructural grids. Then there is the anxiety many people will have towards EV stations. One reason why many Americans are not buying electric cars is because they fear that if they go out on town trips and there are no stations around their location, they will be stuck somewhere. This has been by far one of the biggest barriers to the adoption of electric cars. Today, most people who own EVs have charging stations at home, otherwise they wouldn't even bother to buy one. As for the multitude who can't afford a station of their own, having stations everywhere is the only way they can be persuaded to dump their gasoline vehicles for electric vehicles. Currently, the charging network in the US is a combination of public and private entities. The largest charging network is owned by a company called ChargePoint, which is also the first global traded company of its kind. Other smaller investors include Blink, Electrify America, SEMA Connect, Greenlots, EVgo. Many of these companies rely on universal plug designs approved by the nation's Society of Automotive Engineers, and they also use adapters similar to the ones used to charge Tesla vehicles. Tesla is the largest EV maker in the world and also has the second largest charging network behind ChargePoint, but its chargers are proprietary designs only used by Tesla vehicles. While Tesla and ChargePoint lead the way, other companies are taking different approaches. For instance, General Motors has partnered with EVgo, while Ford is partnering with Electrify America and Greenlots. In Europe, the chargers that are widely used are standard connectors, and in these markets, Tesla does not have any kind of exclusive network. Comparing that to the US market, no standard connector design is maintained, and that has to change. The fact that there is no standard makes the situation a lot worse, as independent companies chase different designs in a bid to protect their share of the market. Many car makers who have their charging stations like Tesla will not allow rival cars to use their stations or chargers, and this is counterproductive for the long-term health of the industry. The current administration has likened the rollout of the EV charging stations to the rollout of the major interstate highways in the 1950s. The cost of the highways in today's value is estimated to be $1.1 trillion. though it cost $114 billion at the time. The president's team believes that the move will be worth it in the end. Advocates of the plan, while admitting the teething problems, argue that the gas stations that crisscross the country didn't appear overnight, but increased in number and spread to the hinterlands as the demand for cars increased. They believe that charging stations will expand in a similar fashion. Although private companies are the main drivers of the EV station push, their effort still remains insufficient, so the support of the government is vital. Experts say the government will have to support the push with funding and policy concessions to ensure the speedy and equitable distribution of stations across the country. As for President Biden and his decision-makers, they believe that the move will be crucial if the US is to remain competitive with China, which has outplaced the US and Europe in terms of the number of stations it currently has. As great as the plans may seem, President Biden's plan is not without its critics. The strongest pushback is coming from Republicans in Congress who are not happy with the president's proposals. They have termed most of the details in the plan as a far-left wish list that do not count as infrastructural projects. Their argument is that most of the content in the $3.5 billion Build Back Better package are not infrastructural projects but white elephant projects. The fear the Republicans and many Americans have is that such tremendous spending will overheat the US economy, pump so much money into the system, and lead to massive inflation that will devalue the dollar. Some experts argue that the $15 billion that the Biden administration is setting aside is grossly insufficient to achieve the goals the president is pursuing. They believe that it will cost about $60 billion of annual spending to meet their 2030 target. Another reason why opponents of the plan feel agitated is because only 25% of the infrastructure plan is actually meant for infrastructure. So one question that the Biden administration and the Democrats have not been able to answer is this: why call a plan that will cost trillions of dollars to execute an infrastructure plan when only 25% of the plan is actually meant for infrastructure? The situation has led to confusion even within the Democratic Party, with Senator Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin refusing to support it. When you review the cost of these charges closely, it appears that the Biden administration have either got their calculations wrong or are pushing out wrong information. Alex Partners, an industry consultant, evaluated the cost and came out with figures far higher than the estimates provided in President Biden's plan. The group estimated the costs of Level 2 chargers, which would take hours to charge a vehicle, at $4,000 installation. Now, Level 2 chargers are used by homeowners and they take hours to charge EVs. The cost of installing DC fast chargers at stations will cost around $50,000 to $110,000 per piece to install. That is besides the thousands of dollars in maintenance costs for each charger. What this rough estimate shows is that the president's plan has been grossly undervalued. These miscalculations and the unrelated items infused into the plan are some of the reasons why the Democrats are having a hard time getting massive support from the masses and getting the bill over the line. However, what is clear is that EV infrastructure is going to dominate the future. It remains to be seen when charging stations will crisscross the entire United States, just like the gas stations of the modern era. This brings us to the end of the video. Let us know your thoughts by commenting down below. Like this video and share it with your friends. We will be back with another video soon. See you in the next one.